Maya was not like most girls in her town. While many of her friends liked shopping, fashion, or music, Maya loved the smell of grease and the sound of engines. From a very young age, she had been fascinated by how machines worked. Her father, who had once been a truck driver, used to take her along when he worked on engines. Even though she was just a little girl back then, she would watch carefully as he fixed brakes, changed oil, or tightened loose parts. After her father passed away when she was still young, Maya kept that memory close to her heart. Every time she touched a tool, she felt like her father was still guiding her hands. She lived with her younger brother, Caleb, in a small rented apartment. Life was not easy. Maya worked at a local garage, one of the few places that agreed to hire her even though most mechanics there were men. She was the only girl, and often the men would joke about her or underestimate her. They thought she was not strong enough, not skilled enough, and not tough enough to handle the heavy work of repairing cars and motorcycles. Maya never argued back. She simply showed up early every morning, tied her hair under a cap, pulled on her gloves, and got to work. The garage itself was not fancy. It was old, dusty, and filled with the smell of oil and metal. But Maya loved it anyway. For her, each broken engine was a puzzle waiting to be solved. She would focus deeply, listening to the sound of a motor, feeling the vibration of a wheel, or looking carefully at small details that others often missed. That attention made her special. She didn't just fix cars, she understood them, almost as if they spoke to her. Her boss, Mr. Clark, was an older man who had run the garage for more than 30 years. He was strict and sometimes harsh with words. He didn't truly value Maya, though he kept her on because she worked hard and accepted whatever task was given. He always thought of her as just a helper and never wanted her to take the lead in serious repair jobs. Still, Maya needed the job. She needed money to pay rent, buy food, and support Caleb, who was still in school. So, she endured the unfair treatment quietly. One Friday afternoon, as Maya was wiping sweat from her forehead after changing a set of tires, she heard the sound of heavy engines outside the garage. It was louder, rougher, and deeper than the usual traffic. Everyone in the garage looked toward the entrance. That was when a group of motorcycles rolled in, their chrome shining under the sun, their engines rumbling like thunder. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Maya's small apartment. She had barely slept. Her mind was full of the bikers' words and their surprising offer. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the image of that empty workshop they had described. A place of her own, a garage with her name on it, something she had never dared to dream of before. Yet the thought also scared her. Dreams were beautiful, but reality was heavy. She had bills, responsibilities, and a younger brother depending on her. The days turned into weeks, and Maya's little workshop slowly started to come alive. The smell of fresh paint mixed with the familiar scent of oil and grease. Her shelves now held the few tools she owned, neatly arranged, and the workbench was cleaned and ready for use. Though the place was still simple, it had heart, and every corner reminded her of the long hours she and Caleb had put in to make it shine. Months passed, and Maya's workshop became a place that everyone in town knew about. What had once been a dusty, forgotten building on the edge of the street was now full of life. The sounds of hammers, drills, and engines filled the air every day. Neighbors often stopped by just to watch her work. They admired how focused she was, how she explained problems in simple words, and how fair she was when it came to money. Customers trusted her, and word spread far beyond the town. One afternoon, as Maya was tightening the bolts on a truck engine, a man walked in with a camera around his neck and a notebook in his hand. He introduced himself as a journalist from the city. "I've heard about you," he said with a smile. "The girl who fixed a Hells Angels bike and then built her own garage. People want to know your story." Maya hesitated, unsure if she wanted the attention, but Caleb encouraged her. "You should tell them," he whispered. "People need to know that someone like you didn't give up." So Maya agreed. The reporter asked about her childhood, about how she had learned to fix machines, and about the day she was fired. She spoke honestly, not hiding her struggles. She talked about losing her father, supporting her brother, being doubted by her boss, and how the bikers had given her an unexpected chance. She ended with a simple line, "I just wanted to prove that talent has no gender. If you work hard and stay true to yourself, doors will open even if someone else tries to close them." When the article was published, Maya's face appeared on the front page of the local newspaper. The headline read, "The mechanic who turned rejection into triumph." People all across the city read her story, and soon, more customers came looking for her workshop. But the most surprising moment came a week later. On a bright Saturday morning, the roar of dozens of motorcycles filled the street outside her shop. Maya stepped out and was stunned to see the Hells Angels again, this time, not just a handful of them, but nearly 50 riders. Their engines shook the ground as they parked in a long line. Neighbors gasped, children peeked from behind fences, and everyone wondered what was happening. The leader of the group walked up to her with a wide smile. "We didn't just come for repairs today," he said. "We came to honor you." Maya looked at him, confused. "Honor me?" He nodded. "We're organizing a charity ride to raise money for kids in this town, kids who need books, uniforms, and meals. And we're doing it in your name, because you've inspired us. You showed us respect and strength when no one else did. Now it's our turn." Maya was speechless. She looked around at the powerful riders, at the shiny motorcycles lined up like soldiers, and at the curious faces of her neighbors. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. She had never imagined her journey would lead to something like this. The charity ride was unforgettable. The bikers thundered through the streets, people cheered, and donations poured in. At the end of the day, they handed Maya an envelope filled with contributions for local children. She shared the money with schools, buying supplies and helping families who had been struggling. The community, once unsure about her, now looked at her with admiration and pride. Her workshop became even more respected after that. Customers trusted her not only as a mechanic but also as a leader who cared about others. Parents pointed at her when passing by with their children and said, "Look at her. She never gave up. Learn from her." But perhaps the most unexpected moment happened when her old boss, Mr. Clark, finally returned. One evening, as Maya was closing up, he walked in quietly. His face was tired, his eyes heavy with regret. For a moment, he stood silently, then said, "Maya, I was wrong." Maya raised her eyebrows, surprised. "I thought firing you would protect my pride," he continued. "But all I did was lose the best mechanic I ever had. And now, I've lost most of my customers too. You proved me wrong in every way." He took a deep breath before adding, "I want to make things right. Maybe we could, partner? Combine our shops?" For a long moment, Maya said nothing. She looked at him, the man who had once dismissed her, belittled her, and thrown her out without a second thought. Then she smiled gently and shook her head. "Thank you, Mr. Clark. But I don't need a partner. I've already built my own path. I hope you find yours too." Mr. Clark lowered his eyes, ashamed, and walked away slowly. Maya didn't feel angry anymore. She felt free. As the months rolled on, Maya's shop continued to grow. She expanded the space, bought better equipment, and trained her 2 young assistants until they became skilled mechanics themselves. Caleb often joked, "Soon you'll have a whole army of mechanics." She laughed, but deep down, she was proud of how far she had come. One evening, after a long day, she stood outside the shop with Caleb. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The sign above the door, Maya's Auto and Bike Repairs, glowed softly in the fading light. Caleb looked at her with a grin. "You remember when you thought this was impossible?" Maya nodded, smiling. "Yes. And now it's real. She thought back to the day she had been fired, to the humiliation of being told she wasn't good enough. If someone had told her then that she would one day run a thriving workshop, be honored by bikers, and inspire her community, she would never have believed it. But life had a way of turning pain into power, rejection into opportunity, and endings into new beginnings. Her story stunned everyone not because she was lucky, but because she had turned every challenge into a chance to grow. She had shown that sometimes the door that closes is the very push you need to build your own. And as she locked up her shop that night, she whispered softly to herself, "This is just the beginning. The best is yet to come." Her first few customers had come mostly through word of mouth. People who had seen her at the garage that day with the bikers, or neighbors who whispered about the girl who fixed the Hells Angels bike. Some arrived out of curiosity, others out of genuine need. Each time, Maya worked carefully, treating every repair as if it were the most important job in the world. One morning, a delivery man pulled up outside with his old van. He scratched his head nervously and said, "Someone told me you might be able to fix this. The brakes are acting strange." Maya smiled warmly. "Let me take a look." She slid under the van with her tools, and within half an hour, she had found the problem. After adjusting the brakes and tightening a loose line, she climbed out, her hands black with grease but her heart full of pride. The man tested the van, and when it stopped smoothly, he clapped his hands in delight. "You saved me, young lady. I drive all day, and this could have been dangerous." He paid her more than she asked for, adding with a grin, "Consider it my way of saying thank you. I'll send my friends your way." Moments like that built Maya's confidence. She was no longer the mechanic who worked quietly in the shadow of others. She was now the one people trusted. But running a business wasn't just about fixing vehicles. It also meant long hours, cleaning up after each job, keeping track of money, and making sure she didn't run out of supplies. Some nights she stayed in the workshop until midnight, going over the small notebook where she wrote every expense and payment. Caleb often stayed by her side, helping her organize receipts or sweeping the floor. He believed in her even more than she believed in herself. Still, there were days when doubt returned. Some people would pass by the workshop, look at the sign, and shake their heads. "A girl mechanic? That won't last," she overheard one man whisper. Another time, a customer came in, saw her standing there, and asked, "Is there someone else here who can check my car?" When she replied that she was the mechanic, the man frowned but reluctantly let her do the job. By the time she finished, his attitude had changed. "I didn't expect this level of work," he admitted before leaving. Slowly, those doubts from others began to fade as more and more people saw her skill. Even Caleb started keeping count. "That's 10 customers this week, Maya. You're really doing it," he said proudly one evening. But the biggest change came when the bikers returned. One Saturday afternoon, the sound of motorcycles once again filled the street outside her shop. Neighbors peeked from behind their curtains, whispering about the sudden arrival of the Hells Angels. Maya stepped outside, wiping her hands on a cloth, her heart racing. The leader grinned at her. "Looks like you're busy." "I'm trying," she said with a small laugh. He nodded toward the growing line of vehicles parked outside her workshop. "You're more than trying, you're succeeding. We just came by to check on you, and maybe spread the word a little more." True to their word, the bikers began recommending her to riders all across town. Within days, more motorcycles appeared at her shop. Some needed major repairs, others just quick tune-ups, but each one left with engines running smoother and riders nodding in approval. Soon, Maya became known not only for her honesty and fair prices but also for her unmatched ability to make bikes feel alive again. Business picked up so quickly that she realized she could no longer handle everything alone. She needed help. After much thought, she decided to hire 2 young men from the neighborhood who had been looking for work. At first, they were surprised she wanted to be their boss, but after working under her guidance, they quickly respected her. She taught them with patience, showing them tricks she had learned through years of observation and practice. With their help, Maya could take on more jobs, and the workshop began buzzing with activity from morning till night. Caleb sometimes joked, "Sis, this place is louder than a market." But his smile showed how proud he was. Meanwhile, across town, Mr. Clark grew angrier with each passing day. Customers were leaving his garage for Maya's, and his once busy shop was now half empty. He would sit at his desk, fuming, while his workers whispered about how the girl he fired was becoming more popular than him. The thought burned him inside. One day, he walked into Maya's workshop unannounced. She was bent over an engine, her sleeves rolled up, when she heard his familiar voice. "So this is where you've been hiding?" Maya straightened, surprised but calm. "I'm not hiding. I'm working." He looked around at the busy shop, the customers waiting, and the workers moving under her direction. His jaw tightened. "You think you can last in this business? This is just a lucky start. People will get bored of your little show." Maya wiped her hands and met his eyes steadily. "This isn't a show. This is who I am. I fix things. I don't need your approval anymore." Her words cut deep, but he forced a smile. "We'll see how long you last." Then he stormed out, leaving everyone in the workshop in silence. Caleb walked over, his face full of concern. "Don't listen to him, Maya. He just doesn't want to admit you've proven him wrong." She nodded, but inside, she felt a fire growing. She no longer feared Mr. Clark's words. If anything, they pushed her to work harder. The following week brought another surprise. A local reporter showed up after hearing about the girl mechanic backed by bikers. He asked her for an interview. Maya was shy at first, but she agreed, speaking honestly about her love for fixing machines and how she wanted to be an example for others who were told they couldn't. When the article was published, her workshop saw even more customers, people who wanted to meet the woman who had broken barriers in a field dominated by men. Her old boss couldn't believe it when he read the newspaper. His hands shook with frustration, while Maya's photo, smiling in her grease-stained clothes, stared back at him from the page. In her workshop, however, Maya didn't waste time thinking about him. She was too busy building something new, something real. Each day brought new challenges, broken engines, unpaid bills, late nights, but each day also brought victories. Her shop was no longer just a dusty building, it had become a place of hope, respect, and opportunity. One evening, as she locked up, she looked at the glowing sign above the door, Maya's Auto and Bike Repairs. For the first time, she felt the weight of her journey, from being underestimated and fired, to standing tall as the owner of her own thriving workshop. She whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." When Caleb woke up, he found Maya already sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the small card the biker leader had given her. "You didn't sleep, did you?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. Maya shook her head. "No, I kept thinking about what they said." Caleb poured himself a glass of water and sat across from her. "So, are you going to check the place out?" She hesitated. "I don't know if it's smart. What if I fail? What if no one comes? What if it's just a big mistake?" Caleb smiled softly. "Maya, you already fixed something no one else could. Everyone in town is talking about it. People will come. And if you fail, at least you'll know you tried." His words lingered with her all morning. By noon, Maya gathered her courage. She picked up her small bag of tools and tucked the card into her pocket. "I'll just go see it," she told herself. Nothing more. The workshop was on the edge of town, just as the bikers had said. When she arrived, she saw them waiting outside. Their motorcycles were parked in a neat line, engines off, and the men were standing casually, as if they had been expecting her all along. The leader smiled when he saw her. I was wondering if you'd come. Maya folded her arms, still cautious. I just came to look. Fair enough, he said, leading her toward the building. The workshop was dusty, with broken windows and cobwebs hanging in the corners. The floor was covered in dirt, and old shelves leaned against the wall. But beneath the mess, Maya could see the potential. The space was wide enough for 2 cars or several motorcycles. There was a corner that could hold her tools and a back room that could be turned into an office. She could already imagine it alive with the sound of engines, the smell of oil, and the satisfaction of fixing things. It's not much, one of the bikers admitted. But it's a start. Maya ran her hand along a workbench, leaving a clean streak through the dust. It could work, she whispered, almost to herself. The leader stepped closer. We've already paid the rent for 3 months. After that, it's yours to handle. Think of it as an investment in someone who deserves better. Her eyes widened. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. The man's expression softened. We know enough. We saw how you worked, how calm you stayed when others froze. Respect is earned, and you earned ours. Besides, we believe in paying back those who help us. Maya's throat tightened. For so long, she had been doubted, overlooked, and dismissed. And now these strangers, men who didn't owe her anything, were showing her trust and respect. She felt tears prick her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. Thank you, she said quietly. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, the leader replied. Just prove everyone wrong. Over the next few days, Maya visited the workshop every morning. She cleaned the floors, wiped the shelves, and repaired the broken windows. Caleb helped after school, carrying boxes and painting the walls with cheap white paint they bought from a discount store. Slowly, the dusty room began to change. It was still small and simple, but it was becoming hers. One afternoon, as she was scrubbing the floor, a woman from the neighborhood stopped by. Are you opening a garage here? She asked curiously. Maya nodded shyly. Yes. Still a lot of work to do, but soon. The woman smiled. I heard about you. You're the one who fixed that biker's motorcycle, right? My husband has been talking about it. When you open, bring us a flyer. Our car could use a reliable mechanic. That small conversation gave Maya a spark of hope. Word of mouth was already working in her favor. Still, doubts haunted her at night. She would lie awake wondering if she was being foolish. She had no money for big advertisements, no fancy equipment, and no staff. Just her hands, her tools, and a dream. But each morning, when she unlocked the workshop door and smelled the faint scent of oil and metal, she felt courage rise again. One evening, as she and Caleb were closing up, the roar of motorcycles echoed once more. The bikers had returned. They parked outside and looked around with approval. You've done a lot in a short time, one of them said. Maya smiled tiredly. It still doesn't look like much. The leader shook his head. It doesn't need to look fancy. What matters is what happens inside. And I know when you put your hands on an engine, it'll come back to life. They handed her a small metal sign with her name painted on it in bold letters, Maya's Auto and Bike Repairs. Her breath caught as she ran her fingers over the letters. You made this for me. The leader nodded. Every shop needs a name. Now you have yours. The next day, Caleb helped her hang the sign above the entrance. As they stepped back to look at it, Maya felt a strange mix of fear and pride. She was no longer just a mechanic working under someone else's roof. This was her place now. That afternoon, her first customer arrived, a young man with a rusty scooter. He had heard about her from a friend. Maya worked on the scooter for an hour, fixing its clogged fuel line and adjusting the brakes. When the engine started again, the young man grinned. You're amazing. I'll tell everyone I know. He paid her with a few bills, not much, but it was the first money she had earned in her own workshop. When she handed the cash to Caleb that evening, he laughed. "Your first profit, sis. You're officially a business owner." Maya chuckled, but deep inside, her heart swelled with pride. She had taken the first step, and it had worked. Yet not everyone was happy. Across town, Mr. Clark heard the whispers. Customers were starting to talk about the girl mechanic who had opened her own place. Some even stopped coming to his garage, saying they wanted to try hers instead. His face darkened with anger every time her name was mentioned. He had fired her to prove a point, but instead she was rising higher. Back in her small workshop, Maya worked late into the night, tightening bolts, cleaning tools, and planning how to grow. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The world had tried to shut her out, but she had found a door of her own to open. And as long as she had her hands, her tools, and her courage, she would keep moving forward. The men riding them were not ordinary bikers. They wore leather jackets with patches and symbols that everyone in the area recognized. They were part of the Hells Angels, a group that many people respected and feared at the same time. Their leader, a tall man with a thick beard and dark sunglasses, parked his bike right at the center of the garage. The engine coughed and then died completely. Maya walked out of the garage that day with her head spinning. She had just fixed something no one else had dared to touch. She had earned the respect of men who were feared across the city. Yet instead of being rewarded, she had been fired in front of everyone. Her heart was heavy, but she tried to stay calm as she carried her small bag of tools. Those tools were all she owned, her only source of strength and skill. As she walked down the street, the voices of doubt began to play in her head. What will I do now? How will I pay the rent? What about Caleb's school fees? She tried to push those thoughts away, but they kept coming back stronger. The only comfort she had was the small patch the biker leader had given her. She held it tightly in her hand, looking at it again and again. It was just a simple piece of cloth, but it felt like a medal of honor. For the first time, someone had recognized her ability without question. Meanwhile, inside the garage, the air was thick. The bikers were not pleased with Mr. Clark's behavior. One of them spoke up, "Your girl just fixed what none of your men even tried. And you fire her? That doesn't sound right." Mr. Clark waved his hand dismissively. "This is my garage. I decide who works here and who doesn't." She crossed the line. The biker leader stared at him, his voice low but strong. "No. She didn't cross the line." She raised the bar. "Remember that." Then he revved his engine, and the entire group rode off, leaving behind a wave of dust and an uneasy silence. Out on the streets, Maya tried to focus on her next steps. She stopped by a small cafe, ordered the cheapest tea she could, and sat by the window. The taste was bitter, but it warmed her enough to calm her nerves. She opened her old notebook and began writing down possible places where she could look for work. Most garages in town already had full teams of male mechanics. Even if they had space, she knew they would hesitate to hire her. But she refused to give up. That night, when she reached home, her younger brother Caleb noticed her silence. "Maya, what's wrong? You look tired," he asked, setting aside his schoolbooks. She forced a smile. "Nothing, Caleb. Just a long day." She didn't want to worry him. Caleb was only 14, and she wanted him to focus on his studies. But later, when he had gone to sleep, she sat quietly at the table and allowed her tears to fall. She cried not because she had failed, but because she had been denied the chance to prove herself further. The next morning, she decided to keep moving forward. She went around town asking at different workshops, but doors closed one after another. Some said, "We don't need more staff." Others said bluntly, "We don't hire women for this kind of work." By noon, her legs were tired, and her spirit was low. Just as she was about to return home, she heard the roar of motorcycles behind her. She turned, and to her surprise, it was the same group of bikers from the garage. They slowed down and stopped right in front of her. People on the street moved aside, staring nervously. The leader removed his sunglasses, revealing sharp yet kind eyes. "You're Maya, right?" he asked. She nodded cautiously. "You fixed my bike yesterday." "Best work I've seen in a long time," he said. His voice was deep but respectful. "Why do you look worried?" Maya hesitated before answering. I lost my job because of it. My boss didn't want me there anymore." The bikers exchanged looks of disbelief. One of them shook his head and muttered, "Unbelievable." The leader leaned slightly forward on his bike. "Listen. Don't waste your talent worrying about small-minded people. You've got skill. Real skill. You deserve better than that old garage." Maya stayed quiet, not knowing what to say. Another biker added with a smile, "You know, most guys mess up engines like mine. You made it sing again. That takes more than practice, that takes talent." The leader then surprised her. "What if we told you we want to help? You don't need him. You need your own place." Maya's eyes widened. "My own place," she repeated in disbelief. "That's impossible. I don't have the money, and I don't even know where to start." The leader shrugged. "Impossible? Nothing's impossible. You gave me respect yesterday. We'll return the favor." Before Maya could respond, he handed her a small card with a phone number on it. "Call us if you ever want to take the next step. Don't let fear stop you." Then, with the roar of engines, they rode off again, leaving her standing on the sidewalk, the card trembling in her hand. That evening, Maya couldn't stop thinking about their words. She sat at the small kitchen table with Caleb. "Do you believe people like us can ever have our own shop?" she asked softly. Caleb looked at her with his young but wise eyes. "Why not? You're the best mechanic I know. You fixed Dad's old truck when nobody else could. You fix things no one else even tries. If anyone can have a shop, it's you." Her heart warmed at his faith in her. But still, fear sat in the corner of her mind. Rent was already hard to manage. Starting a business sounded like a dream too far away. The next few days were tough. Maya continued searching for jobs, but every answer was the same: no. Some laughed at her, some doubted her, and some simply ignored her. Yet everywhere she went, people had heard whispers about what had happened at the garage. Strangers approached her, saying, "Are you the girl who fixed the Hells Angels bike?" Word was spreading quickly, and it gave her a small spark of hope. One evening, as she was locking the door of their apartment, she heard loud knocks. When she opened the door, the same group of bikers stood there, their motorcycles parked along the street. Her neighbors peeked through their curtains, shocked to see them in the neighborhood. The leader spoke calmly. "We told you, Maya, don't waste time with people who don't see your worth. We found a small workshop on the edge of town. It's empty but has good space. We covered the first few months' rent. It's yours if you want it." Maya was stunned. She looked from one biker to another, not sure if this was real. You did what?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We're not joking," said another biker. "You helped us. Now we're helping you. That's how respect works." Her heart raced. She had no words. She felt gratitude but also fear. What if she failed? What if no customers came? The leader seemed to read her mind. "Don't be afraid. You've got the talent. People will come. Trust me." For the first time, Maya allowed herself to imagine it her own workshop, her own tools, her own name above the door. The thought both scared her and filled her with excitement. That night, as she lay in bed, she couldn't sleep. She kept picturing the workshop, dusty and empty, waiting for her hands to bring it alive. She whispered to herself, maybe this is my chance. Maybe this is where everything changes. The entire garage fell silent. The other mechanics glanced at each other nervously. None of them wanted to step forward. They all knew this was no ordinary customer. These men were tough, proud, and not easy to please. Making a mistake could mean serious trouble. Even Mr. Clark stepped back, pretending to be busy with papers at his desk. But Maya, standing at the side with a rag in her hand, felt something different. She saw the broken bike not as a problem but as a challenge. She noticed the small oil stain under the bike, the uneven sound it made before stopping, and the worried look on the rider's face. She understood right away that the motorcycle was in serious trouble, but she also felt confident she could fix it. The leader of the bikers looked around the garage, his voice strong as he said, "Who here can fix this?" His tone carried both command and doubt. No one answered at first. The silence grew heavier, and the bikers started to look irritated. Finally, Maya stepped forward. She took a deep breath and said calmly, "I can fix it." The men burst into laughter. The bikers chuckled too, shaking their heads in disbelief. One of the other mechanics whispered under his breath, "Maya, don't be crazy. These guys don't want a girl touching their bikes." Even Mr. Clark frowned, muttering, "Stay out of this. Let someone else handle it." But Maya didn't back down. She walked closer to the bike, her eyes scanning every detail. She crouched down, touched the pipes, and looked at the chain. Her hands moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. The leader of the bikers raised an eyebrow. You're saying you can fix my bike?" he asked, half amused and half curious. "Yes," Maya replied, her voice steady. "Give me a chance. I promise I won't waste your time." The room grew quiet again. The other mechanics waited to see what would happen. After a long pause, the leader shrugged and said, "All right, little lady. Show me what you've got." Maya rolled up her sleeves, grabbed her toolbox, and got to work. She quickly drained the leaking oil, replaced a worn gasket, and adjusted the timing chain that was completely out of place. She worked fast but carefully, her hands moving with a rhythm that looked almost like art. Sweat rolled down her forehead, but she kept her focus sharp. The bikers watched closely, their expressions slowly changing from doubt to surprise. They whispered to each other, clearly impressed by the way she handled the tools and the machine. The other mechanics, who had mocked her before, now stood silently, watching in disbelief as Maya did what none of them dared to attempt. After an hour of work, Maya wiped her hands on her rag and looked up. "Try it now," she said. The leader climbed onto his bike, turned the key, and pressed the start button. The engine roared to life instantly, smoother and stronger than before. The sound filled the garage, powerful yet perfect. The man revved it once, then twice, and his face broke into a rare smile. "Well, I'll be damned," he said with a chuckle. "You really know what you're doing." The bikers clapped their hands against each other's shoulders, nodding in approval. One of them even whistled. The leader reached into his pocket, pulled out a small patch from his jacket, and handed it to Maya. "Not many can touch my bike, but you did it." "Respect," he said firmly. Maya's heart swelled with pride. For the first time, she felt truly seen for her talent. She smiled softly, holding the patch in her grease-stained hands. But before she could even thank him, Mr. Clark stormed forward, his face red with anger. "That's enough," he shouted. "Maya, you had no right to step in. You embarrassed me in front of important customers." The bikers looked confused. The other mechanics shifted uncomfortably. Maya stared at her boss in shock. "But I fixed it," she said quietly. Mr. Clark's voice grew louder. "I don't care. You don't run this place, I do. You think showing off makes you special? You're finished here." Pack up your things, you're fired. The words hit her like a punch. The garage was silent again, except for the soft hum of the motorcycle she had just fixed. Everyone looked stunned. The bikers exchanged glances, clearly unhappy with what they had just seen. But Mr. Clark didn't care. He crossed his arms, certain that he had made the right decision. Maya stood there, her hands trembling slightly, but she didn't cry. She looked at the bike, then at the leader who had just shown her respect, and finally at her boss who had thrown her out. Inside, she felt both hurt and strangely strong. Something told her this was not the end of her story, it was only the beginning.